dialogue later on. But at this time, we have Julian Harper as well as Noel Leader on community cop assignment. And certainly, while we also have Father Lucas, no doubt about it, on community cop assignment. So certainly we're looking forward to them coming back to the show as soon as possible. And we might get a sighting of one of them today because their task might be ending very soon. So they said they're going to try to make it. So in any event, just want to do what we customarily do. We go through our history piece. But right before the history piece, let me just let you know that the People's Film Festival, one of our producers, and she's no stranger to you, Veronica Kitt, she's doing the People's Film Festival. We love her dearly. The People's Film Festival is getting bigger and better, bigger and better, and bigger and better. And so certainly that's from May 30th to June 1st. May 30th to June 1st, and we'll give you more information. And we'll make invites more, and we'll make that more available. Not tickets, but invites. We're going to invite some people, very special people. So call in, and you might get a surprise today. But in any event, it's going to open on May 30th to June the 1st. And that's it. It's going to continue at Mazel's, but it's going to start at Magic Johnson Theaters right there in Harlem, right off 125th Street. So be our very special guest. That's from May 30th to June the 1st. And there's some real movies that you're really going to like. Veronica did her due diligence on this one, so you're going to see some things you're really going to like. Let me start out, as we always do, we start with a history piece because our history is so replete, so many things in our history that happened this week somewhere in our history that certainly we'll point out a few things. There's a whole host of things, but with respect to time, I'll point out a couple. First, you have the Homestead Act of 5/20, 1863. This was an act right there during the time, actually, believe it or not, of the Civil War, where President Lincoln was giving land away, 160 acres, to white men, not to black men, to white men who did not bear arms against America. So if you could prove or at least establish in some way or another that you did not bear arms, you were not a Confederate and did not bear arms against the federal government, consequently, you was given that land if you would go west. Given 160 acres of land. Boy, and we fought hard and didn't even get to 40, but here you had Lincoln, who some of you love so much, giving out 160 acres of land to any white person to just raise their hand. So, and also we have a couple other things, but I'll just mention in particular, this is the anniversary of the Freedom Rides. The Freedom Rides from 5/20/1961, and as you well know, it was a host of organizations under the ban of COFO that rode these buses. It was to certainly ignite those who were dormant with respect to voting registration. So these rides were to actually, and strengthen our roles in voting in some places where we basically could not vote, give us that right. In other places where you had the right to vote. However, you had two guys, Billy Bob and his brother, Bobby Bob, whatever, with shotguns sitting right there and out in front. So, we needed mass mobilization to make those kind of things happen. And certainly during the one that I'm speaking of in particular, the bus was stormed by everybody from law enforcement people, people in the community, basically a white mob that had a little bit of everybody, and probably even a preacher or two was in it, and they beat the stuffing out of black folks as well as white folks who were on the bus, primarily black organizations. So they beat the stuffing out of them, and when asked later, they had every kind of excuse under the sun one could imagine with respect to where was the law enforcement of that day. They were allegedly out because they were celebrating Mother's Day, because, varies from, you know, locale to locale. So in any event, that's the excuse that they use. But they savagely beat the Freedom Riders at that time. So we should not forget that we did have people that took it upon themselves, even from here in the North, which the majority was from the North, will go down there to enforce the right and encourage those to register, those who were unregistered, to register for the right to vote. So we need to keep, you know, those two things in mind, the Homestead Act as well as the Freedom Riders. And certainly there's a few other things I can name, but with respect to time, I'll just leave it at those two. Now, today I might be alone. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I would be remiss from the outset before I even get into any current events and things that have transpired. Just want to point out that the weekend was lovely, beautiful weekend. Was able to go to the pilgrimage to Malcolm's gravesite, which is an annual event. If you haven't done it, you need to do it. Organized by two great Pan-Africanists of the highest order. Certainly Professor Smalls, who I would just say he's the keeper of the flame, as you know, because he's done it all these years, ever since Malcolm's assassination, as well as Professor Leonard Jeffries. Those are the two key people, and certainly there were others who loom large, but they've made their transition. But those main two are people who've continuously brought people aboard and certainly got youth to never forget Malcolm, and certainly they had members of Malcolm's family there. So, you know, the Little family and as well as his sister Ella's family, that side. So it was a nice mixture, and certainly to spend the day with these great luminaries. And it's just important. We should not, because they're so down to earth and we see some of them on a regular basis, we should basically salute them and thank God so much for preserving their lives. Every time we see Professor Smalls and certainly Professor Dr. Leonard Jeffries, we should be joyous and happy and just be glad to see them one more time, because the day will come where they won't be here. So we have to treasure the moments and respect the fact that they lift up our shining black prince, Malcolm X. And they had so many others there, people from out of town, from all over the place. But I'll just say, you know, Dr. Umar Johnson was there, the Irajana Jidi, I.O. Kamathi, he was there, so many others. And Zach Kondo, who wrote a fantastic book, you know, at least 25, 26 years ago on the assassination of Malcolm X, among others, were there. So it was outstanding. And I know Kareem, if I know him, he'll be calling in to mention that he was there and how great the evening was. So in any event, let me just use this time wisely and get started. Want to talk about a few things that happened during the week, and certainly we're going to miss a lot because there's so many things that happened this past week. But certainly call in and whatever your bosom interest reflects and whatever's on your mind, certainly we can do it during the call-in portion, which will be in about 20 minutes. There's a white man, Grady Wayne Wilkes. He was actually dressed in war garments. He had on a camouflage. He had body armor on, as well as a helmet. When police responded to a domestic call, he was waiting for them and shot. You know, he killed one police officer and wounded two others in that process. Now, as you know, FBI has this black identity extremist thing working, saying that there's the potential for black males especially to be violent. Well, given the history that you've put on black folks, yeah, well, that potential was there, but there's no evidence of it. It does not manifest itself in the way that whites who kill police officers on a regular basis all over the country, and yet you don't call them white identity extremists. You don't call them because you participate in some of their militias. You allow them to train in federal military bases and the like. So, but in any event, this one in particular, this guy Wilkes, he killed one officer, wounded two, and then there was an intensive manhunt for him. Now, in that manhunt, they ended up, now this, well, I need to say this is in Alabama. And so what they did was, they found him in a trailer park. You know, wow, imagine that, you know. So found him in a trailer park, and ultimately, without him being injured in any kind of way, brought him in. Now, we talked about last week. Here you got a black woman not bothering anybody, had familiarity with the police officer. The police officer claims that she attempted to take his taser, but the video doesn't show anything about her with the taser in her hand. Here he put 5 rounds in her body, killing her viciously while she was saying, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. And then you think of Dylan Roof, who killed 9 God-fearing, praying people at Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina, a church that has a serious history with respect to insurrections, civil rights action. It's an historical church. Dylan Roof knew that, you know, and Dylan Roof was not a lone wolf, which they treated it because he was not characterized as a terrorist. But in any event, the point I'm making is that he was taken without harm or danger to him. No, nothing happened to him. As a matter of fact, if those stories are right, they took him to a fast food restaurant, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, one of them, and treated him to a meal. So I'm juxtaposing that to say, here you have a sister that was killed outright. This is going on all over the country. Of course, we know that the administrative trial of Daniel Pantaleo is going on for what happened to Eric Garner. Now, I think it should be 8 of them, but, you know, they only chose 1 out of the 8 to discipline, if he's going to, in fact, be disciplined. But in any event, that hearing is still going on as we speak. Now, again, I can't give it to you any more direct that black unarmed men and women are being killed, and children, you know, are being killed all over the country. And yet, when you have these cop killers, they're white. Ask the FBI. What does a cop killer look like? It's a white guy. Not only are they from white supremacist organizations that pose a danger to the federal government, the state government, militias, what have you. They are training, they are incensed on settling things with a gun, you know, which is the history of America. Consequently, yet when the situation transpires with black people, you don't see black people surviving these events. And I'm saying that white people with guns. There was another case of a white guy with a gun, which they were able to take him in, arrest him, effect the arrest without killing him. This is going on all over the place. Yet black people without weapons, without being a commissioner of the crime, and certainly Sandra Bland and others will qualify for what I'm saying now, others who were not in the commission of a crime. Eric Garner was not in the commission of a crime, by the way, even though every time you pick up a newspaper, it's saying that he was selling Lucy's. He was not selling Lucy's at the time. Obviously, he had just broke up a fight. Anybody was there that could tell you he just broke up a fight. So, just want to just point out again, you have that situation now. You know full well, if you remember, and you should, that when police officers were on the trail, as you know, this was an intense manhunt for this cop killer. Well, there was an intense manhunt for Charles Dorner, a former LAPD, police officer who allegedly had killed a police officer. So they were looking for him or a police officer's family member. They say he did it, and he says that in his manifesto he talked about the internal racism that was occurring in LAPD, and when he reported a fellow police officer, I think, who kicked a pregnant woman in the stomach or something to that effect, things got bad on him. He started getting bad evaluations, and consequently he was fired. So in any event, when they went after him, they had him cornered, so he was concealed in a place where everything was under control, and you heard the police officers talking about, fry him, yeah, we got him now, he ain't going there nowhere, we got him, and all these snide remarks while they burnt the place, while they shot rounds into the place, not disallowing him the ability to walk out with the hands up. They wasn't going to allow him to give himself up. The intent was to kill him, but they don't have that same intent when it comes to their own, even when they just killed a white police officer. You saw that in Pennsylvania when they tracked a guy down in the woods. So it's constantly going on where you have cases where whites who've used weapons and police officers were killed, yet they are able to somehow miraculously bring them in unwounded and unharmed in any way when it's white. But when black folks just got their hands up begging for their life, somehow a cop is in fear for his life. So all those cops who claim that somehow that fear factor kicks in should be psychologically evaluated to see if they're competent enough to be a police officer. But that happened in Alabama, and it needs to be looked into. And I'm going to try to get to the phones in a little while, but just a few more things that you need to know. Another white guy, John Nesbitt, 78 years old. He was a bus driver in Utah. Now, he intentionally, as a young child, 14 years old, was exiting his bus. He closes the door, trapping the young man in the door, his backpack in the door, and then took off. Now, the reason why I will tell you from the outset that was intentional is because, one, he had an argument with the 14-year-old's brother earlier that day. He had to discipline his brother. Now, this is a racially mixed, but I'll just say a black child in Utah, which is primarily white for the most part. So when he trapped the young black child in the bus, all of these other white children were standing there waiting to get off the bus. So he knew, with all of those children waiting to get off the bus, why did he take off? He intentionally dragged this black child for approximately 17 seconds, and that translated to about 150 feet. So that's the length of a basketball court and a half. So 1.5 times the length of a full court, a basketball court. He dragged this young man. And then after it, he said that he didn't know. Yet you had children there. They were screaming, but you didn't get the audio on the video, but they were screaming while they were filming it. So in any event, when asked, and again, his name is Nesbitt, 78 years old. He was asked, was he a racist? He had the temerity to say that he wasn't racist. He didn't know that the young man was hanging out of the front door, and he's right there to his right. You know, a bus driver drives straight ahead, but if he looks to his right, the door is right there. So he could have easily seen the young man, and it was easy. He was in plain view, being dragged, and I'm sure he was screaming also. When asked, was he a racist, you know what he had the nerve to say? That he has a black dog, and his dog is as black could be, So he ain't got a problem with black people because he's the owner of a black dog. Well, and then he started laughing. He had the nerve to laugh after being asked that. And he laughed it off. So obviously he knows that he's not going to get charges in Utah for dragging a black child. And he was 78 years old. So a few days later, he was allowed to resign. After, questioning on what happened. No criminal charges, mind you. Now imagine a black bus driver dragging a white youth by his backpack, dragging him for 150 plus feet for 17 seconds, doing something like that, and then can laugh it off and say, well, he's got a white dog, and his white dog is white as white can be, and that proves he's not a racist. I mean, this is ridiculous, the things that are going on now. Now, the black child wasn't killed or anything. Now, he could have very easily, the backpack could have popped, he could have fell, he could have been run over by the bus, the front or the back of him. A host of things could have happened to him. No criminal charges as we speak right now, but the family is suing. So at least, worst case scenario, there will be a lawsuit, but that's not justice, as we always say on this show. Just to get a few dollars for the system, to pay you basically hush money, while the black community is being pacified like that, and yet these things would never happen in any ethnic white community. Yet this black child was dragged senselessly, and his brother was checked earlier that day by that same bus driver. And when you in the midst of so many white children, and so the bus driver knows you and your brother, so he did his due diligence to both of them, verbally getting on one of them and the other one dragging him. He should be locked up, but in any event, we'll see what happens. We'll give you an update if anything changes and there's any charges. Let's keep going. Now, the you know what? Because respect the time, I see it's almost time for. Let me go to an update. Now, last week we talked about Payne. What's her name? Hannah Payne. We talked about Hannah Payne in Georgia, in Clayton County, Georgia, and she actually saw a black man, a 62-year-old black man, Kenneth Herring, in a fender bender. We talked about this last week. He was in a bender fender, and allegedly it was a hit and run, so he kept going. So whatever car he hit, he kept going for whatever reason. She followed him for over a mile in her truck. And when he drove to a certain location and stopped, she boxed him off, trapping him. Now, she was at this point not being a so-called Good Samaritan, making sure everybody's okay. She was hunting a black man at that point. 62-year-old black man, Herring. Boxes him in, pulls out her weapon, he exits the car, and she kills him outright. Now, that's what I told you last week. She killed him. She was hit with a murder charge by the district attorney's office. Now, the white supremacists in Clayton County, Georgia, won't leave well enough alone. They're getting calls from all over to put pressure on that district attorney to drop the charges. Now, there's a white organization, a white supremacist organization, that's actually paying for robocalls. And let me tell you what the robocalls are saying. In the white supremacist organization, it's called Road to Power. I hope Sister Keisha call in, because she's an expert. Sister Keisha Foster from Straight Black Pride is an expert on white supremacist organizations, white militias, what have you. So I don't know, Sister Keisha, if you know who Road to Power is, but that's just one of many. Certainly the FBI mentioned that all these white supremacist organizations are infiltrating on local police departments. But this one in particular, they're trying to force the district attorney to drop those charges. And this is what the robocall says. It says they really aren't fully human. They meaning us, black folks. They're saying they really aren't fully human. It's time to send them all back to Africa. Tell D.L. Payne that nothing was done wrong. Tell a DA that Hannah Payne didn't do anything wrong. Is that right? She killed a grown man, father, and a grandfather, and she killed them outright. But, you know, those of you who like these interracial relationships, look at what white folks are saying. Go back to Africa. They're telling you you're not human. That's why when they catch you out of pocket with their woman, what they do to you. You need to rethink this whole thing. I know you love white women and white skin. When we had that show with Straight Black Pride and was talking about it, one brother had the temerity to call me and say, come on, Mike, some of them are beautiful, aren't they? I said, not to me. Maybe they are to you, but not to me. I'm just speaking for myself. So I'm not attracted to them at all. And I don't have to be apologetic for that. I know what I like, and I'm not constricted in any way by what your standards of beauty are and to force me. So, I mean, look, it's bad enough that black folks, many of us kneel down and pray to a white deity. It's bad enough that we walk into houses of worship and seeing white folks all over these windows or standing there on a cross in front of the church. No intelligent people has a deity that looks like his clear and open enemy. Our historical open enemy is untractable in hunting down black people, men, women, and children, destabilizing the black community at every given opportunity, and yet our deities look like them. You have to be out of your mind. You have to start coming to things like the pilgrimage for Malcolm X and listen to the scholars like Professor Jeffries, you know, like Professor Smalls. So they will teach you the African way, because we've gotten away from our culture, and that's why these days are important. Instead of just responding to all of these European holidays, which, you know, Dr. Jack Felder told us that, you know, that it's a form of menticide to observe European holidays. So we're going to open up the phone. So put the number up so we can open up the phones and we can have a lively discussion on whatever you want to talk about. But just for the record again, we need to rethink this whole process of loving what don't love us, trying to do for those that don't have our best and our good standing and best wishes. They don't have that in their heart. They constantly, whether it's the federal government, shifting us around historically, creating poverty situations, removing vital, vibrant black communities, removing them, utilizing eminent domain, whatever the case might be. So they've used all these things. Now, I can't tell if you calling in, because the telestrate is not telling me anything. But in any event, if you're on the line, you could start calling in, and we'll take your calls. The number's on the board, and I can't tell, but I'll just give it a try. I'm not sure. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, hello. This is the poet calling in, Brother Mike.
Oh, brother, man, it's always good to hear from you, man. You got me for life with the Martin Delaney, but all your poems are strong. I just got a special love for Martin Delaney, and when you came back with that one, man, oh man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
Well, I haven't gotten those tickets in my email yet. Is that too soon for me to expect them?
You know what? When you hang up, don't hang up. Don't hang up. Somebody will be there to get that information, because they have 4 tickets for you and your family or whoever
I
you
gave them
choose
the
to bring.
information, but they said that I would get it in my email or some notice, and I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay, then if that's the way they said they're going to do it, then you could certainly you can count on it. We have very responsible, reliable people, and they'll make sure it happens.
All right, so today I'd like to make a comment about abortion because, you know, everybody is making all this noise about, you know, they're against abortion, but I think there's a hidden agenda involved, and I'd like to give you my viewpoint on it.
Right.
It's called the evil abortion distortion.
Wow.
Like the book of Ruth, let us speak the truth. Examine the fight over abortions. The conservative right have chosen this fight, camouflaged with wicked distortions. For abortion in the slave owner's mind means fewer slaves to kill. Who will they torture, sodomize, and rape, subjugate, and brainwash at will? Abortion to them will minimize jails, employment as judges and guards, far less lawyers and trigger-happy cops while we languish in cells playing cards. Arise, awake, what will it take for our people to understand? They have hidden agendas. It's not a mind bender. We're commodities and part of their plan. They need the slave to humiliate. Their canines won't suffice. Their need to rule, to be so cruel, has come at a mighty price. For they have no soul, no consciousness. They have no moral sense. But when the children they spare grows up, they're confined within barbed wire fence. And then our children they'll sacrifice upon evil pews of hate with lethal poison strapped to gurneys as justice will come late. And some will die in foreign wars and sing, God bless us all, while friendly fire cuts them down and hatred breaks their fall. Indeed, they want to end abortions, so in the end they choose who lives, who dies, while mothers sigh, and who will surely lose. Protect the living, honor the dead, and patiently await the unborn.
Brother, as always, man, profound, brother. Oh, man. Incredible. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, brother Mike.
Alaikum salam.
My hotel. Brother, it was a wonderful day we had on the weekend going up to Brother Malcolm's commemoration and memorial for the ancestors. And it was really amazing, brother, because it seems as though a lot of the young people are always increasing. Every year that we go, I've noticed that, the young people. And it's very important. Brother Jeffrey said something to the effect of we got to remember to teach our young our history. Because if we don't teach our young our history, then these devils is going to try to wipe us out. That's why I always emphasize that about the education of our history in the schools. But it's coming upon us to make sure that we do that job. Okay, second, the last thing I want to say, brother, last week, y'all was speaking about Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his son and Mr. Farrakhan and Malcolm as far as when he was casted. I just want to get this, us to get on the same page, brother. The reason why there's a confusion with this is because on Elijah Muhammad's deathbed, right, all the ministers were there, Mr. Farrakhan and others, and Rabbi Dean Muhammad, his son. His son was always taught the religion, brother. And Elijah Muhammad said on his deathbed that my son can go anywhere in the world and teach this religion. And this is what we don't understand. A lot of the true religion of Al-Islam was not being taught because we had to be brought to another level of understanding. And this is where the confusion comes at. Also, Mr. Farrakhan was under Malcolm, under the teachings, right? So when Malcolm got the word from the son, Rabbi, about the father and the relationships with the secretary, then Farrakhan went to the Elijah Muhammad and told him Malcolm said something about it. This inflames everything.
Well,
we got to stop doing these type of things. I love Mr. Farrakhan, I love Elijah Muhammad, and I love Malcolm. But we got to stop being our own worst enemies and causing confusion, because there's no way that Brother Malcolm should have been lost and been assassinated, brother. And also, his memory will always live on, because the law blessed him and gifted him with helping our people and raising our people up to a better standard, and that is my comment. And I just want to share that with you, brother, because I know that you are true in what you believe about Elijah Muhammad, Farrakhan, and Malcolm. And I just want to share that with you. That's
right.
why he took over as the leader, President Farrakhan going and taking over as a nation at this time. Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Right.
If you want to ask me a question, I'll respond.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the call. You just have to remember that it would take an entire program just to explain some of those dynamics that you mentioned. I think we were saying that I think basically Noel, which I concurred with, was that there were things that Wallace Muhammad, Warith Muhammad did at the death now. Minister Farrakhan was not there bedside, for the record, when Elijah Muhammad passed. He was not there, point of clarity. Now, the family was there, the royal family, as it was called back then, was there, but he wasn't there. But you have to remember that what was said was that the Fruit of Islam was disbanded, that the MGT, all of that was disbanded, the stores and so many other things, the schools, all that was disbanded. That's a fact, brother. Now, whether you are pro or con or whatever position you take, I love Malcolm. That's why I'm there every year with you to show and appreciate that magnificence and use the spirit of Malcolm as a form of unity to all other organizations present and all other people present. Nobody loves Malcolm more than Professor Smalls, and certainly Dr. Jeffries was there for that. But at the same time, Dr. Jeffries has a special relationship with Minister Louis Farrakhan. There's no contradiction there. So it would take me a while to explain, but I was just saying the basics that you can't deny, that all of these things were disbanded. And the only other point that I would just add to it is that why would you take over something that your father did and built? Your father built it, Malcolm and them built it. If you don't believe in it, then you start your own thing. But don't destroy what was built. And then if people look at you as a destroyer and then Minister Farrakhan as the builder because he built it back, I mean, you can understand those positions. So I'm not saying that he's an evil man or a wicked man. I'm sure that Malcolm liked him. He was a real nice person and a decent man. But I'm just saying at the same time, one destroyed something, and I'm sure the FBI wasn't mad at him destroying it, and I'm sure that the FBI wasn't glad at Minister Farrakhan building. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Brownsville never ran, never will. Okay.
Yes.
No, that's right.
Okay. Alton Maddox need help. He is going blind, and he's also not doing his daily writing. Now, if anyone want to help him, may I continue?
Yes, brother. Quickly,
okay.
Go ahead.
Send donations. Alton Maddox Jr., Post Office Box 35, Bronx, New York, 10471. 10471.
Repeat it one more time, brother.
Alton Maddox Jr., Post Office Box 35, Bronx, New York, 10471. Payable, check or money order. Alton Maddox Jr.
Thank you, brother, for the call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Good evening. My name is Mike. I'm calling from Harlem. I want to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Between Sandra Bland and Eric Gardner.
Mm-hmm.
If you, knowing what you know, if you were being arrested by some police officers, would you personally offer any kind of physical resistance? Even if you thought you were in the right? Oh, there's you. That's
an excellent question. For the record, and we still do what to do when stopped by the police. 100 blacks in the law enforcement who care. We do workshops, and we specifically speak to our youth. Our youth have a martial spirit. They're not cowardly. They're built for these times, and they will challenge. We tell them all, if a police officer is giving you an unlawful order, we still want you to submit. Do not challenge that police officer in terms of a physical confrontation. We're saying that be intelligent, be observant, observe the name, the shield number, the license plates on the car, know the time of day, get as much information as you can, and not make it as obvious that you're accumulating all this information. Follow those instructions, even if he's calling you out of your name, even if he's making you do something that you should not have to do, get on the ground, hands on the wall when it's cold outside, freezing. Do those things, and then later make a complaint. Go to 26 Federal Plaza, make a complaint with the police department, but don't go to that same precinct that police officer works. Go to another precinct. And certainly you can go to your spiritual advisor, or you can go through a lawyer to make that complaint. Don't go there by yourself. So I'm just saying, do not challenge an officer physically, even if what he's saying to you does not appear to be legal, or certainly even if it's not respectful. Don't challenge him. Make your concerns known.
I once called the issue about women of color. I want to say I like all women. I was going to call you about that. No, I want to say.
Well, I like black women. I'm not into that women of color thing.
I'm going to send you my old Playboy magazine. Live long and prosper.
Yes, sir. Well, I like sisters. They're black women. You know, they're not women of color, but I can understand you know what you're saying. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Ray, how you doing, Community Cop? Brother Mike, how you doing?
Go ahead, brother.
The first announcement, we had a good time up at Malcolm X's, at the graveside of Malcolm X also. You can't miss that next year, Community Cop family. You got Paul Robeson, Dr. Ben, Khalid Mohammed is there, Malcolm's son. It's a whole
grandson,
sorry. It's there. It's a whole host of people.
Aaliyah, Cab Calloway, so many others, yeah.
With so many others. And now, don't forget Community Cop family tomorrow, 7:30 at 103 Quincy Street. Come on by. Part 4. Black organizations. Don't miss this one. Hope to see you there. Now, let me tell you, I believe this Officer Pantaleo, or whatever his name is,
Pantaleo,
didn't the Garner family accept payoff already? So I believe he would probably only get disciplinary time in the street. I don't think he will lose his job because they already got a payoff. So the departmental hearing, he might only get some days in the street, a couple of months, if you ask me. I hope to see the Community Cop family tomorrow at 103 Quincy Street, 7:30. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, brother. Certainly what Ray is talking about. We have these every other week. We have these the Professor Mackey lecture series at 103 Quincy Street, and certainly at those things. Well, tomorrow night at 7:30, I'll be finishing the history and legacy of black organizations. The history and legacy of black organizations, various organizations, and want to thank Ray personally for making sure that Professor Jeffries got back home. You know, we actually drove him back to New Jersey, where he lives at, after the function, once we found out that he didn't have a ride, back from Harlem back to Teaneck, New Jersey. So we took it upon ourselves to make sure he got home. But we had a great day, and we went to Paul Robeson's, me, Dr. J, Brother Youssef, and Ray. We went to Paul Robeson's and certainly to his gravesite, and Dr. J gave us some stories. I mean, you just mentioned a person in our history, and he will tell you some fantastic stories and information you need to know. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Next caller, you on the air.
Hello, this is Lee from Harlem.
Oh, go, brother. Cool.
Yes. Listen, brothers, I wanted our family to kind of really get back into some of our Africanism,
Right?
Because the 25th, May 25th, is African Liberation Day, and
Right.
we are having a program to go to Washington to end these sanctions against Zimbabwe, because we feel
Nice.
it's ridiculous. It don't make any sense. So
Give the date and
anybody that
time.
can,
Give the date and
cost
time.
goes-
Give the date and time.
Yes, the cost is only $50.
Right.
We're leaving 6 a.m. from 456 Nostrum Avenue, Brooklyn, and that's on 6 a.m. On the 25th of May.
Name the cross streets in Brooklyn on Nostrand and what?
Nostrum and what is it? Nostrand Jefferson. The corner of Nostrand and Jefferson, the A train to Nostrand.
Right.
And it's just a couple of blocks from there.
And that's at
We're
6
gonna-
a.m.
Yes, 6 a.m. the buses are leaving.
All
We're
right.
going to meet in Washington at the African American Civil War Museum at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest. So anybody that wants to drive there, they can drive and meet us there. But we're definitely going to address the people in Washington about these sanctions against Zimbabwe, because
Right.
they're killing the women and the children mostly. You know
All
what
right.
I'm saying? The sanctions are not hurting the rich and the people that are illustrious. They got money. They still eating in restaurants and going on. But it's the poor people, the people who are struggling, who the sanctions are hurting. So we got to stress on
Give
these
the
people
date
to
and
get
time
rid of
one
these
more time,
sanctions.
brother. Date and time one more time.
The date is May 25th, and it's going to leave from 456 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn. the corner of
Nostrand and Jefferson. Nostrand and
Nostrand
Jefferson.
and Jefferson.
6
o'clock.
a.m.
6 a.m. So
All right.
anybody that will come, we certainly appreciate it, and we have to do this because we are black. We're African.
All right,
Okay?
brother.
Peace.
Got it. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm from Manhattan. How you doing?
Good.
First of all, everything that when white people talk about black, they talk about gloom. She left and it was dark and dismal and black and without form and all this kind of stuff here. So when white people use the word black, and in the dictionary, in Webster's dictionary, black is considered negative. Oh, the hole's dark, and this and this and this and all.
Yes, you got it.
I'm saying all that to say that we need to stop saying we black. We got to start saying where we are. Like if a Chinaman is in America, he's a Chinese American. If a Japanese is in America, he's a Japanese American. They don't know what to call us. You go to application, it got black / Negro / African. We don't know. They don't know what to call us. So I think I'm going to try to get a legislation to stop calling us black, and the reason why, because everything that white folk associate black with is negative.
So that's why we should change it because of what they look at?
Yeah,
do you
because
do
we
you
ain't-
think if you call
black is
yourself
beautiful.
African, they're going to look at you any
I don't
differently?
mean to get loud. Hello?
Do you think they're
Black
going to
is-
look at you any differently if you call yourself African as opposed to black? We
I
need to
don't care what
define.
they look at me like.
Let me just end this by
I'm sorry.
saying we need, in the spirit
I
of
don't care what they looking at me
self-determination.
like. I'm saying that
No,
because this is
stop.
their world.
All right, cut the call.
This is
Cut the
the
call.
white
Cut the
man's
call.
world.
Cut that call. Just want to say for the record, if you believe in the spirit of self-determination, we will determine what we'll call ourselves, and we will determine how we view ourselves. And black is beautiful, by the way. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm from New York.
Go.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to say this, that the so-called capitalist system, it's not broken. It was designed to be broken. That's one. And number two is the capitalist system is the legitimate racket of the ruling class, the 1% billionaires who own half of the $19 trillion economy of the U.S. and also govern the country.
All
And
right.
three, I want to say this, that when it comes to Venezuela, Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, and all these other countries, they don't treat us no different than they treat them. They go over there, they destabilize the economy, they exploit the people, take the resources, the oil, the natural resources, and take whatever they can get, and then they leave the people suffering. They do the same thing here, nothing different.
All right. Good point. Good point. Thank you for the call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Harlem.
Go.
Yes. Brother Graves, I don't know whether you're fasting, but you look good, brother. And I'm looking at your face and everything. I don't know where you've been, but it looks good, man, real good. And may God continue to bless you. Now,
thank you, brother.
Quickly, it says that when the new God come on scene, he can change some things and he can leave things as is or change. Now, the other thing was that we're in universality. And that's good because the cross is universality. So we are there. And the light that used to be in the east is here. And the other thing is we are new people. Alex Haley was a good brother, but I don't believe he knew where all of us came from.
Say that again?
So we are completely new people here. We know we come from Africa, but we are new. And all of them come here. Some try to get in front of us. One thing I have with them, if something happens, then they want to come around. So the whole thing is when they come, they should what? Get information. Because we know this white man better than anybody. Like you alluding to what the things that's going on. We know him. So to say that, to say the gift of the light is among the African Americans. God bless you. May Ramadan Mubarak. May you have a wonderful day.
What language is that, brother? What language was that? Okay, I didn't get the language, but I thank you, brother, for the greeting. I can't tell from the telestrator something with the calls, but in any event, I would just say that I think the brother is right, and certainly there's a lot of knowledge we can impart based on our experiences here in America. However, black men and women that come from the continent, certainly they have experiences they can share with us and make us better. And certainly brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, they have a special story that they can share with us. But basically, it is the same man that oppresses, as Malcolm said. Malcolm said that, one oppressor might speak to you in German, one in French, one in English, one in Spanish, but it's the same oppressor. So we have to understand that. So we should not be divided by borders. We are an African people, rather of our homeland, as Marcus Garvey said. We're one people, one aim, one goal, one destiny. So in that sense, we can't depend on and say that those that are here are the ones that know the white man the best. The white man has made himself known all over the world. You start reading history, you see when Native Americans called him a devil. So it wasn't that black folks started characterizing him as a devil. Anybody, whether it was in Hawaii, whether it was in Mexico, and all in India and other places, or in China, trying to set up opium dens and get Chinese people hooked on opium and the like. They fought a Boxer Rebellion and certainly other campaigns against what they call the white devil. So we've all come to that same conclusion, irrespective of land, language, wherever you at, and in different parts of history. It's all come back to that because they have spread tyranny. They have utilized power. The white man don't bargain with anybody. He don't pay for anything that he can take. If he can take it, he's going to take it. And that's what the history shows. This is not me talking. This is what history shows. That's why whether it's a gold mine, an oil field, a diamond mine, anything, you have it, they want it, they're going to take it. And their guns are the biggest guns. They have advanced weapons. And certainly they might make a few people rich in that process. Believe it or not, it's some rich Haitians. It's some well-to-do upper middle class and rich Haitians, yet millions are poor. So this divide and conquer thing, this same playbook that is used in Haiti is used in Jamaica and Trinidad and other places. It's used right here in the black community. We have people, and Malcolm said, we have leaders that are selected by them. Their goal is to put out the fire. And whenever things get hot and you get a Ferguson where, you get things about to explode, they send in Negroes. They send in sellouts who will come to you with a pacification program, and they're making money in that process. They will mislead you, confuse you, as Malcolm said, lead you astray, lead you amok, leave you bewildered, and then they'll cash the check and move on to the next location. So they dust off some leaders that are in a closet somewhere. You don't even hear from them until things get hot in a particular place, and then they reappear out of nowhere. So in any event, we want to thank our audience. We'll keep going on YouTube too, but we want to thank our audience, and certainly remember the People's Film Festival that starts May 30th and goes to June the 1st at Magic Johnson Theater, then Maisels on Malcolm X Boulevard later. But we thank all those, as always, when we see you in the street.